The excitement of a fresh draft class always brings a hidden shadow over the locker room at West 56th Street, and this year feels especially heavy for a few names we have come to root for. While we celebrate 8 new faces joining the Horseshoe, we have to face the cold reality that roster spots are a zero-sum game in this league. For a young man who has fought through incredible adversity like Daniel Scott, the arrival of new competition might just be the final whistle for his time in Indianapolis. Daniel Scott is currently facing the most difficult crossroad of his professional career, and head coach Shane Steichen has some incredibly tough decisions to make before the season kicks off. When the front office selected A.J. Horseshoe from LSU in the 3rd round with the 78th overall pick, the writing on the wall became much clearer for the safety room. Horseshoe is expected to step right in and compete for a starting role next to Cam Bynum, which immediately pushes everyone else down the depth chart. It is not just the draft picks causing this logjam, because Chris Ballard was extremely active in the free agent market this offseason. The team brought in Juanyeh Thomas, Jonathan Owens, and Nasir Adderley, creating a massive wave of veteran experience that simply did not exist here a year ago. When you look at the numbers, it becomes a simple game of musical chairs where someone is going to be left without a seat. The most heartbreaking part of this situation is that we have never actually seen what this young safety can do when the lights are bright at Lucas Oil Stadium. Throughout his 3 years with the organization, he has been plagued by a string of brutal season-ending injuries that occurred before meaningful football could even start. It is a cruel twist of fate for a player who showed so much promise coming out of college. On top of the new additions, the team is also welcoming back Hunter Wohler, who is returning to the field after missing all of last season with a painful Lisfranc injury. With Wohler back in the mix and the 4 new safeties added to the roster, the path for a comeback looks steeper than ever before. This is the part of the business that never gets easier to watch, especially for a fan base that values loyalty and hard work. We want to see these players succeed, but Shane Steichen has to prioritize the best 53 men who can help this team win the AFC South. The competition in training camp is going to be fierce, and for those who have spent more time in the training room than on the grass, the pressure is at an all-time high. It is now or never for them. Deepening the concern for the safety position requires us to look at how the draft strategy shifted the entire landscape of the secondary. This young man was brought in to be a versatile piece who could cover ground and contribute on special teams, but the physical toll of the last 3 seasons cannot be ignored. In the NFL, availability is often the most important ability a player can possess. When the coaching staff looks at the tape from practice, they see the potential, but they also see a roster spot that has effectively been vacant during the regular season for a long time. The arrival of the rookie from LSU changes the dynamic because he brings fresh legs and a healthy resume of high-level collegiate play. It forces the veterans to prove they can still provide more value than a younger, cheaper, and healthier alternative. This creates a high-stakes environment where every single rep in practice feels like a playoff snap. We have seen this story play out before in Colts history, where a talented player just cannot catch a break with their health. It reminds us of how fragile a career can be in such a violent sport. The team really needs stability at the back end of the defense to help the cornerbacks play with more confidence. If the safeties are constantly rotating or dealing with limitations, the whole system starts to break down. This is why the front office was so aggressive in bringing in names like Owens and Adderley. They wanted to ensure that if one player goes down, the entire defense does not collapse like a house of cards. The loyalty the organization has shown by keeping him on the roster through multiple injuries is commendable, but there comes a point where the production must outweigh the patience. As we move closer to the preseason games, the evaluation will shift from theoretical potential to actual on-field performance. He will need to show that his speed has not diminished and that his instincts are still sharp despite the long layoffs. For the fans who have followed his journey, there is a deep sense of hope that he can finally stay healthy and strong enough to compete daily. Everything in professional football eventually comes down to direct consequences on the scoreboard in the win-loss column. For our beloved team, the consequence of this roster shuffle is a significant upgrade in depth, which should help them win more games late in the season, when injuries usually take a toll. If the new players perform as expected, the defense will be much tighter, and we will not see as many big plays given up over the top. This translates to a safer environment for our young quarterback to operate, knowing he does not have to score 30 points every single week just to keep pace. However, the human cost is that reliable names and high-potential prospects might have to be let go. This could result in a rival team picking up a player who finally gets healthy and haunts us for years to come. We have seen players leave Indianapolis and find success elsewhere, and that is always a bitter pill for the fans to swallow. The risk of failure is real if the team chooses the wrong players to keep. If they prioritize a veteran who has passed his prime over a younger player who finally found his stride, it could hurt the special teams units that rely on speed and hunger. We need a roster that is built for the long haul of a 17-game season. The impact on the locker room is also a factor, as these men form close bonds during the grind of the offseason. Seeing a teammate who has worked so hard to recover get released can be a blow to morale, but winning tends to heal those wounds quickly. Every decision made by the coaching staff right now is focused on one thing: making sure the Colts are playing meaningful football in January. If that means making a cold-blooded move to cut a player with a history of injuries, then that is the price of progress in the modern NFL. We want to see a return to the dominant days of the past, and that requires having the best possible athletes on the field at all times. The simple truth is that the team is better today than it was a week ago when this whole process began in the draft rooms yesterday. We are entering a period of immense tension as the front office weighs the best-case and worst-case scenarios for the roster. In the best-case scenario, the competition brings out the absolute best in everyone, and the safety who has been sidelined finally stays healthy and becomes a key contributor. He could provide that veteran presence and special team spark that the coaching staff has been waiting for since he arrived. This would validate the patience of the organization and give the fans a great comeback story to cheer for at Lucas Oil Stadium. But if it fails, the worst-case scenario is much more sobering. If the team keeps him based on potential, and he suffers another injury early in the year, they will have wasted a roster spot that could have gone to a healthy, productive rookie. This would leave the depth chart thin and force the starters to play too many snaps, leading to burnout and more injuries across the board. The margin for error in the NFL is razor thin, and the Colts cannot afford to be sentimental when the stakes are this high. We are looking at a division that is getting tougher every year, and every single player on the 53-man roster must be able to contribute on Sundays. The tension in the building must be palpable as these athletes realize their careers are on the line every time they step onto the practice field. Short sentences cannot fully capture the anxiety a player feels when they see a high draft pick taken at their exact position. It is a wake-up call that the league moves on quickly. The fans are watching closely because we want to see the right mix of talent and heart. If this gamble on new talent works, we could be looking at one of the best defenses in the conference. If it backfires, we will be left wondering why we let talented, familiar faces walk out the door. The next few months will reveal the true identity of this team, and whether the aggressive moves made during the draft were the right ones. It is a high-stakes game of chess, and the pieces are finally starting to move into place right now, as we approach the summer months of the NFL calendar. The situation in Indianapolis is a perfect example of why the NFL is often called a business of replacement. We have seen incredible talent come through our city, and while it is hard to say goodbye to players who have given their all, the need for a healthy and productive roster is the priority. Daniel Scott is at the center of this storm, fighting for a spot against a wave of new arrivals and returning veterans. It is a story of resilience meeting reality, and the outcome will define the depth of our secondary for the upcoming season. Be honest with me as a fellow fan. Would you trust a player who has missed 3 straight years due to injury? Or is it time to move on to the fresh legs of a rookie like A.J. Halsey? These are the hard questions that keep us up at night. If you love the Colts and want to stay informed on every roster move and insider update, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a beat as we follow this journey together. Go Colts! We are Indy.